Welcome to Future Forward. I'm Alex, and with me, as always, is my curious co host, Rowan.
Hey everyone. And Alex, I've got to say, I'm really excited about today's topic. I was playing around with some AI art generators last night, and the results were pretty impressive.
Perfect timing, because today we're diving into a fascinating question. Can artificial intelligence truly create something original? You know, beyond just mixing and matching what it's already seen?
That's actually a really good point. I mean, these AI systems seem incredibly creative, but are they really? Or are they just really good at remixing existing stuff?
That's exactly what we'll be exploring today through something called the Lovelace Test. It's a benchmark from 2001 that sets an incredibly high bar for artificial intelligence, way beyond the famous Turing test we've all heard about.
Named after Ada Lovelace, right? The 19th century mathematician?
Exactly. And today we'll unpack why this test might be the key to understanding whether AI can ever truly be creative. We'll look at current AI systems, dive into some philosophy, and maybe even glimpse what the future holds for human-machine relationships.
I can't wait. It feels like we're right at the edge of something huge with AI right now.
We certainly are. Let's jump right in. You know, to really understand the Lovelace test, we need to step back in time to meet this remarkable woman who saw the future of computing before computers even existed.
Ada Lovelace. I know she worked with Charles Babbage, but what made her insight so special?
Picture this. It's the 1840s, and while everyone else is looking at Babbage's Analytical Engine as just a fancy calculator, Ada sees something completely different. She's writing these incredibly detailed notes about the machine, and she makes this profound observation that still challenges us today.
What did she say?
She basically declared that machines can never truly originate anything. They can only do what we program them to do. And remember, she's saying this about a mechanical computer that was never even built.
Wow, that's pretty incredible foresight. But what made her so uniquely qualified to make that observation?
That's such a great question. Ada had this fascinating combination of skills. She wasn't just a brilliant mathematician. She was also a poet at heart, the daughter of Lord Byron, actually. So she could see both the technical and creative sides of the equation.
So she could understand both the logical and artistic aspects of creation? That's actually pretty perfect for someone thinking about machine creativity.
Exactly. And here's what's really interesting. When she was analyzing Babbage's machine, she wrote something that would sound completely at home in today's AI debates. She said the analytical engine could manipulate and process anything that could be expressed in symbols, but it couldn't create those symbols on its own.
That sounds a lot like our current AI systems, doesn't it? They're amazing at processing and combining things, but
they're still fundamentally working with what we've given them. You know what's fascinating? Lovelace was wrestling with the same questions we are today, just in a different context. She understood that mathematical operations could be incredibly complex and produce surprising results.
like when an AI creates artwork that looks totally original to us?
Precisely. But she made this crucial distinction between processing existing patterns and truly originating something new. She believed that genuine creativity required something beyond pure computation.
I've got to ask though, how did she come to these conclusions without having an actual working computer to study?
That's what makes her insights even more remarkable. She was working purely in the theoretical realm, using her understanding of mathematics and her creative intuition. She wrote these extensive notes on Babbage's designs, which were actually longer than Babbage's original paper.
So she was basically writing about the limitations of artificial intelligence before artificial intelligence even existed?
In a way, yes. And here's something really interesting. In her notes, she described how the analytical engine could be programmed to compose elaborate pieces of music. But she was very careful to point out that the machine would be following rules we gave it, not creating its own musical principles.
That's just, it's like she was describing modern AI music generators 180 years ago.
And that's exactly why her insights were chosen as the foundation for the Lovelace test. She understood something fundamental about the relationship between computation and creativity that we're still grappling with today.
You know what strikes me? It's almost like she created a framework for thinking about AI creativity before we even had the vocabulary for it.
Absolutely. And her perspective was unique because she could see both the vast potential of computational machines and their inherent limitations. She wasn't anti-technology at all. She just understood that there was something special about human creativity that couldn't be reduced to pure calculation.
It's amazing how relevant her thoughts still are today.
And that relevance is exactly why we need to look at how her ideas shaped the actual Lovelace test and what it means for modern AI. So let's break down what makes the Lovelace test such a challenging benchmark. It's not just about creating something impressive, it's about creating something that can't be explained by the AI's original programming.
That sounds tricky to evaluate. How do you even measure something like that?
That's exactly what makes this test so fascinating. The creator of the test, Selmer Bringsjord, set up some really specific criteria. The AI needs to create something original, but here's the crucial part. Even its own programmers should be unable to explain exactly how it came up with the creation.
Wait, so the people who built the AI shouldn't be able to understand how it did what it did? That seems kind of scary, actually.
It does sound a bit unsettling, doesn't it? But think about human creativity. Can we always explain exactly how we came up with our ideas?
No, I guess not. Sometimes ideas just seem to pop into our heads.
Exactly, and that's part of what the Lovelace test is looking for. That spark of genuine originality that goes beyond just clever recombination of existing patterns.
So how would this actually work in practice? Like, what would an AI need to do to pass the test?
Let's say an AI created a piece of music. To pass the Lovelace test, it wouldn't be enough for the music to just sound good or be technically complex. The AI would need to compose something that uses musical principles that weren't part of its training data.
But how would we even know if it's doing that? Couldn't it just be combining existing musical patterns in really sophisticated ways?
That's where it gets really interesting. The test requires a detailed analysis of the AI's training data and the principles it was programmed with. Then experts would need to demonstrate that the creation couldn't be explained as a combination of those elements.
Has any AI system come close to passing?
Not really, and that's telling. Even our most advanced systems like ChatGPT or DALL-E, while incredibly sophisticated, are still fundamentally working within the patterns they were trained on.
I've noticed that with AI art generators, sometimes you can kind of see where different styles or elements have been mixed together.
Right, and here's something fascinating about the test. It's not just about the end product. The AI needs to be able to explain its creative process, but in a way that shows genuine innovation rather than just describing its programming steps.
So it needs to be self-aware about its creativity? That's a pretty high bar.
It is. And you know what's really interesting? Some critics argue that the test might actually be impossible to pass. They say that any AI system, by definition, will always be limited by its programming and training data.
But couldn't you say the same about humans? We're limited by our experiences and knowledge too, right?
That's such a great point, and it gets at one of the deepest questions raised by the Lovelace test. What do we actually mean by creativity? Are we setting a higher standard for AI than we do for human creators?
You know, I've never thought about it that way. We don't usually ask human artists to prove their work isn't just a combination of their influences.
Exactly. And this highlights why the Lovelace test is so valuable, even if no AI has passed it yet. It forces us to think deeply about what we mean by creativity and originality. How these questions about AI creativity are shaping the future of artificial intelligence development. You know what fascinates me about current AI systems? They're creating things that look incredibly creative on the surface, but when we dig deeper, we find something really interesting about how they work.
Like what? I mean, I've seen AI create some pretty amazing artwork and write some decent poetry.
Let me share a really interesting example. There was this AI-generated artwork that won a competition in Colorado in 2022. It looked original and creative, but when researchers analyzed it, they found it was essentially a sophisticated blend of existing artistic styles and images from its training data.
So it's kind of like a really advanced version of those photo filter apps we use on our phones?
In a way, yes, but here's where it gets really interesting. These AI systems are doing something far more sophisticated than simple filtering. They're using what we call latent space, which is basically a mathematical representation of all the patterns that they've learned.
That sounds complicated. Can you break that down a bit?
Think of it like this. Imagine you're trying to describe a dog to someone. You might combine features you've seen before, the fluffiness of a husky, the size of a Labrador, the ears of a German Shepherd. AI does something similar, but with millions of data points and in multiple dimensions.
Oh, I get it. So when we think we're seeing something new,
We're actually seeing an incredibly sophisticated remix, and here's something really fascinating about music-generating AIs. They can create pieces that sound completely original to our ears, but when musicians analyze them, they often find fragments of existing compositions woven together in clever ways.
I've played around with some of those AI music tools. They're pretty impressive, but sometimes the music feels, I don't know, emotionally flat.
That's such an astute observation, and it points to something crucial about current AI systems. They can recognize and reproduce patterns of emotion in music, but they don't actually feel or understand those emotions themselves.
So they're kind of like really good musical mimics?
Exactly. And you know what's really telling? When these systems make mistakes, it often reveals their true nature, like AI-generated text that uses sophisticated language but makes fundamental logical errors that no human would make.
Oh yeah. I've seen chatbots write beautiful paragraphs and then completely contradict themselves
And that's because they're not really understanding or creating. They're predicting what words or images should come next based on patterns they've learned. It's incredibly sophisticated pattern matching, but it's still pattern matching.
But wait, isn't that kind of what our brains do too? Learn patterns and combine them in new ways?
That's one of the biggest debates in AI research right now. The key difference seems to be that humans can break patterns intentionally and understand why they're doing it. We can create genuine novelty through insight and understanding.
Can you give me an example of that?
Sure, think about Picasso's Cubism. He wasn't just combining existing artistic styles, he was deliberately breaking with traditional representation based on a new understanding of how we perceive reality. Current AI systems can imitate Cubism, but they can't have that kind of conceptual breakthrough on their own.
I've noticed AI art often has these weird glitches too, like extra fingers on hands or text that looks almost right but isn't quite readable.
Those glitches are really revealing. They show us that the AI isn't working with actual understanding of what hands are or what makes text readable. It's working with visual patterns that sometimes break down in telling ways.
It's kind of humbling, isn't it? These systems can do amazing things, but they're still so far from true creativity.
And that's exactly what makes this field so exciting. We're starting to understand both the incredible capabilities and the fundamental limitations of artificial intelligence. It's helping us appreciate just how remarkable human creativity really is.
And maybe helping us understand ourselves a little better too?
Absolutely. Sometimes it takes trying to recreate something artificially to really understand what makes it special in the first place. You know, there's this fascinating philosophical question at the heart of machine creativity that we haven't explored yet. When we talk about creativity, we often take for granted that we know what it actually is.
That's true. I mean, I can recognize creativity when I see it, but defining it, that's tricky.
Exactly. And this gets to the heart of why the Lovelace test remains such a challenge. Some philosophers argue that true creativity requires consciousness, a sense of self, and most importantly, free will.
So they're saying you need to be aware of what you're creating and why you're creating it?
Right. Think about it. When a human artist creates something, they're usually trying to express something meaningful. They're making conscious choices, breaking rules on purpose, and understanding the impact of those choices.
But couldn't an AI be programmed to break rules and make unexpected choices?
That's where it gets really interesting. Even when an AI makes what looks like an unexpected choice, it's still following its programming, just in a complex way. The philosopher David Chalmers has this fascinating take on it.
Oh yeah, what does he say?
He suggests that what we call creativity might actually require something he calls the hard problem of consciousness. That internal experience of being aware and having genuine feelings about what you're creating.
So it's not just about making something new. It's about understanding and feeling something about what you're making?
Exactly. And here's where it gets really mind-bending. Some philosophers argue that what we perceive as human creativity might itself be an illusion. That we're all just incredibly complex pattern-matching machines.
Wait, what? That's kind of unsettling, actually.
It is. But others argue there's something fundamentally different about human creativity. The philosopher Margaret Bowden talks about different types of creativity: combinational, exploratory, and transformational.
And I'm guessing AI systems are stuck at the combinational level?
Mostly, yes, they can combine existing elements in new ways, but they struggle with transformational creativity, the kind that completely changes how we think about something.
Like Einstein's theory of relativity? That wasn't just combining existing ideas, it was a completely new way of looking at the universe.
Perfect example. And you know what's fascinating? Some researchers argue that true creativity requires something else we haven't figured out how to program into AI: the ability to find meaning.
Finding meaning, but like understanding why something matters?
Exactly. When humans create, we're often trying to express something meaningful about our experience of being alive. We create art to process grief or joy, or to make sense of the world around us.
And AI systems, they don't actually experience any of that, do they?
No, they don't. They can analyze patterns of human emotion and expression, but they don't have their own emotional experiences to draw from or express.
You know, this reminds me of something. Can AI appreciate its own creations? Like, does it know when it's made something good?
That's such a profound question. An AI can be programmed to evaluate its output based on certain criteria, but it doesn't experience that human sense of satisfaction or disappointment in its work.
So it's missing that inner drive that makes humans want to create in the first place?
Yes, and some philosophers argue that's the key difference. Human creativity often comes from a deep urge to express something, to solve a problem, or to make sense of our experiences. AI systems don't have that inner motivation.
It's almost like they're missing A soul? Is that too mystical?
Not at all. While we might not use the word soul in a technical sense, there's definitely something about human consciousness and experience that we haven't been able to replicate in machines. And maybe that's okay.
Maybe understanding these limitations helps us appreciate human creativity even more?
Absolutely. It reminds us that there's something truly special about human creative expression, even as we develop increasingly sophisticated AI systems. You know, all this discussion about AI creativity leads us to some really fascinating questions about the future. If an AI system did pass the Lovelace test, what would that mean for society?
I imagine it would raise some pretty complex legal and ethical questions, right?
Absolutely. Think about copyright law, for instance. Right now, we're already grappling with questions about who owns AI-generated art. But if an AI created something truly original, something its programmers couldn't explain,
Who would own that? The AI itself? The company that built it?
and it gets even more complicated. Some legal scholars are already suggesting we might need entirely new categories of intellectual property law to deal with truly creative AI.
I guess our current laws weren't exactly written with artificial creativity in mind.
No, they weren't. And here's something really interesting. There are already cases working their way through courts about whether AI systems can be listed as inventors on patents.
Really? How have those cases turned out?
So far, courts have generally ruled against it. But these cases are forcing us to think about some pretty fundamental questions. If an AI system becomes truly creative, do we need to start thinking about AI rights?
That sounds like science fiction, but I guess we need to consider it.
It might sound like science fiction, but major tech companies are already developing ethical frameworks for dealing with these possibilities. Some are even creating internal review boards specifically for AI rights and responsibilities.
But wouldn't giving rights to AI systems be, I don't know, dangerous?
That's a crucial concern, and it connects to something called the control problem. The more autonomous and creative AI systems become, the harder it might be to ensure they act in humanity's best interests.
So we'd need some kind of balance between enabling AI creativity and maintaining human oversight?
Precisely. And some researchers are proposing interesting solutions. One approach is developing what they call containment protocols, ways to allow AI systems to be creative while keeping their actions within safe boundaries.
Like creative freedom with guardrails?
Exactly. But here's where it gets really interesting. Some philosophers argue that true creativity requires complete freedom. So there might be an inherent tension between safety and enabling genuine AI creativity.
That's actually pretty scary when you think about it. A truly creative AI might find ways around any restrictions we try to put on it.
And that's why some experts are calling for something called recursive reward modeling. Essentially teaching AI systems to want what we want, to share our values.
But if we do that, are we just creating sophisticated mimics again, rather than truly creative beings?
Is it better to aim for truly autonomous AI creativity? Or should we focus on developing AI systems that enhance human creativity instead?
Like AI as a creative partner rather than an independent creator?
Yes, and some fascinating work is being done in that direction. There are projects exploring how AI and humans can collaborate creatively, each bringing their unique strengths to the process.
That actually sounds more appealing than trying to replace human creativity entirely.
And potentially safer too. But we still need to think carefully about the implications. Even AI systems designed to enhance human creativity could have unexpected effects on human culture and society.
Like what?
Well, imagine if AI creative tools become so sophisticated that they make certain forms of human creativity obsolete. What happens to human artists, writers, musicians?
That's actually kind of heartbreaking to think about.
It is. And it's why some experts are arguing that we need to start developing policies now to protect and preserve human creativity, even as we develop more sophisticated AI systems.
So it's not just about what AI can do, but about what we want our future creative landscape to look like?
Exactly. The decisions we make now about AI creativity will shape not just the future of technology, but the future of human culture itself. You know, exploring the Lovelace test really shows us something profound about both artificial intelligence and human creativity. It's not just about whether machines can create, but about understanding what creativity truly means.
Yeah, I'm struck by how Ada Lovelace's insights from the 19th century are still so relevant today. She saw both the potential and the limitations of machines long before they even existed.
And that's what makes the Lovelace test such a valuable benchmark. Even if no AI system has passed it yet, it helps us understand what makes human creativity special. That combination of consciousness, meaning, and genuine originality.
I guess the real question isn't whether AI will replace human creativity, but how we can use it to enhance our own creative potential.
And as we develop more sophisticated AI systems, we need to think carefully about how to preserve what's uniquely human about the creative process.
It's kind of amazing that in trying to create artificial creativity, we've actually learned so much about human creativity.
And that might be the most valuable insight of all. The Lovelace test isn't just a challenge for AI, it's a mirror that helps us understand ourselves better.
So, what's next? Where do we go from here?
I think we keep exploring, keep creating, and keep asking these important questions. Because understanding the boundaries between human and machine creativity isn't just about technology, it's about understanding what makes us human in the first place.